What's up, guys? So we're coming up on the end of this Galleus soloing Sand Devil run. I want to show you all the build, and then we'll do another run. It's not the fastest in the world. You can see right here, we're at 2 minutes and 30 seconds. But basically, this is the build that I'm going to be using for him in PvP. So this will just be his build in general. And this build, working in Sand Devil, obviously farming some food as well because they're dead on the ground, is awesome. Now, this may not be the build that I run during CVC if I want to get a lot of points, but this will be the build that I run during Sand Devil Gear Ascension tournaments where I don't need to do a ton of runs in a short period of time. I can do it overnight. It's not really a huge rush. Matter of fact, it's exactly what I'm doing right now. So we have this event going on. It's not the best as far as the turn attack stuff goes, which this is not a turn attack tournament. Obviously, if it's a turn attack, you probably want to use an actual team to get it done easier, but ultimately you're going to get it done. You're leveling with food, and there's a champion training tournament, I believe, going on. Yeah, right here. So we're getting the best of both worlds, basically. Now, as far as this build goes, it's actually very obtainable and very reasonable because it's Stone Skin plus Savage. Nothing super special, no regeneration, nothing like that. So as far as the specific stats, we have 60,000 HP. This is going to be fairly important, though you'll see in the run that because of his passive, he's not really taking that much damage. Now, 7,100 defense, you don't necessarily need this much. You can probably go lower. You'll see where his HP sits, and the fact that he has Revival and Death plus Unkillable up all the time, he may not actually need this much defense either. I haven't, tested to see what the minimum is, but he is 4-star Blessing. The crit damage is 314. As far as Sand Devil area bonuses, I don't really have any that are relevant. I have some crit damage, some ignore defense, but as far as the speed, I have nothing. No defense, no HP, no accuracy. It's not needed for him. So I have no extra stats in those other areas. For the pieces of gear, we have this could be extra speed, extra crit damage. Anything would be better than this, actually, to be honest. This isn't amazing. We have some overall good stuff, but it could definitely be improved. So it's not the highest gear demanding champion to build for solo content whatsoever. We have this necklace, which I will glyph that up later on. We have this banner, which, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and put a little extra defense because, like I said, I want to use him in PvP. This is his PvP build. This is his arena build. You know what? I may just leave it for accuracy right now. I could, yeah, I got too little accuracy for it to even matter, to be honest. Basically, the accuracy would just be used on the provoke from that A2 skill, or the decreased speed if I use them in things like Chimera. But I'm not using them there right now. Got the defense, very nice. I may throw them in those areas later on. I have the Malefic Talon. If you are having troubles keeping yours alive, you could run the Golden Elixir. It'll boost him 10% HP whenever he drops below 50% HP. You could stack his defense up a little bit higher. This is whenever they receive damage, so you'd be boosting his defense. Actually, this could be really powerful for him potentially as well. Cat's Gaze could be good for him. Anything that's going to add extra damage could be good for him. That's the only reason why I have the Malefic Talon. But if you wanted to run something like Wand of Submission to send back any of those debuffs, that could be good as well. His first form can be controlled, but his second form can't. So basically what we're doing here is we're taking advantage of this passive skill. Reflects 50% of the damage this champion receives back to the attacker, which really doesn't reflect a significant portion of damage. It's really his A1 doing all the damage on the boss. If the attacker is a boss, reflects 100% of this damage the champion receives. Also heals him by 50% of the damage received. The A3 is now buffed to granting an extra turn. So he places Revival and Death, increased defense, extra turn. Fully restores all allies destroyed max HP. So the HP the Sand Devil destroys, well, that's going to be irrelevant. His A2 is placing Unkillable. The Unkillable is ignored by the Sand Devil's big hit, so you got to make sure that you're tuned in a way that Revival and Death is up when that big hit is coming out. The A2 is going to place Counterattack. Counterattack is very powerful for him in getting this A1 to activate more frequently. This A1 ability, we're not worried about the decreased speed, nothing like that. The only thing I'm worried about here is when counterattacking, the damage inflicted by the skill is based on this champion's defense and the enemy's max HP. So ideally, we're getting as close to capping out the max HP hits as possible. I have Lightning Cage, but if you for some reason wanted to use him only to solo areas in the game, which he can solo a few different areas, and maybe I do a video once I test these other areas. I did do a dragon solo with him. It was kind of slow, but he could do it. He did it fine. But you could switch to Brimstone if you only want him to be a solo champion. You could possibly go Crushing Rend if you wanted some faster clears on the waves. But for PvP, I think Lightning Cage is just going to be the best if you're running Stone Skin. If you're not running Stone Skin, well, you don't really have buffs to protect at the beginning. Maybe you have some buffs to protect later on, depends on your teams. But I think Lightning Cage is going to be the best for most players. If not, things like Life Harvest could be very powerful for you. And then, of course, Brimstone for PvE type content, or possibly even Polymorph, to be honest. Though he's not going to active, well, I don't know. Polymorph could be interesting. He's not going to get it reflected back to him, so that could be kind of cool. Either way, let's move on to the next thing here. We have the Masteries. Sorry, I went blank there for a second trying to think of when he would activate Polymorph. He can still take debuffs from the enemy, so Polymorph could be good for him, and he's not going to have the wand send Polymorphs back to him, which is pretty cool. Why does he got piercings in his beard? That's interesting. Either way, we have Helm Smasher. If you wanted to go for more damage, faster runs, go War Master. But like I said, I'm using him in PvP content as well. So we're going War Master, more counterattack chances. The A1's going to be doing more damage. And then these Masteries. If you wanted to use them in Chimera as well, I would probably just swap this banner for an accuracy one so that you'd be able to place the decreased speed over there. It shouldn't make any difference in Sand Devil, but obviously test it out to see how it works for you. So let's jump in here. With this team, you are going to need presets, because if not, what he's going to do is he's going to go straight in and use this skill 3 into skill 2 and back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. But what I want him to do instead is open with this A2, so then we can cycle around and have Revival and Death up whenever the Sand Devil does a big AoE hit. Now we're currently below the Sand Devil's speeds. The Sand Devil's speeds on stage 25, let me double check those real quick. They're 270. So as long as you're below 270 and you have Stone Skin, this is going to be fine. If you go above 270, maybe you open with his A3 skill. You may have to adjust the tune a little bit, but I'd say too much lower than this and it can mess up your runs. But then above 270, it's also going to mess up your run, because I had the Mastery that gives him extra speed when allies die, and this messed up my run. So don't do that unless you have it specifically tuned for that. And if you do, that's no problem. You can try it out. Let's go ahead and jump in here, see how this run goes. And so far, of the 20 plus runs that I've done, it's worked out perfectly. So we are having Unkillable up, Revival and Death up basically the entire time. So I don't really see a situation where he fails, assuming you have the tune done correctly. Assuming he's keeping that Revival and Death up with the big AoE hit right here. So he places it 2 turns. You have to be careful with it though, because when I had the Unkillable and Revival and Death going back to back, basically he's left with 1 turn of Revival and Death, 1 turn of Unkillable, and they're just on top of each other. So for a lot of these areas where you're going to solo with them, you need to have them separate. So then you're left with 1 turn of Unkillable and then 1 turn of Revival and Death. Like here, the Unkillable drops, but we still have Revival and Death. If those were stacked, we'd be left with nothing basically. And then every now and then we get a big enough hit when we don't have counterattack up for the counterattack still to happen just from our Mastery proc versus the actual buff being placed on the champion. I also tried with the buff extension Mastery, and it was okay, but I like the defense ones a little bit more. I didn't notice a huge difference there. And also, you don't really want to have, Cycle of Magic. You can have Cycle of Violence because you're not doing big enough hits here for that to trigger. But as far as turn meter boosting stuff, cooldown refreshing stuff, things like that, you just don't really want to have that on him, because if you're planning for these buffs to be cast at specific times and all of a sudden they get mixed up, well, it's not going to work. Now, when the Sand Devil does that big hit, this is where Brimstone would actually work, is when he's actually asleep. So do you even get any hits on him when he's asleep? Well, if you're going slower than his speed, we may actually not. Let's see. We'll unpause it. So we do get a hit on him when he's asleep. So those would be the times you could proc Brimstone. And you'd have to be careful with the tune, because if you placed Brimstone right now when you can't actually place it, then it goes on cooldown still. So you may never really get it up. But if it works out for you, awesome. It will speed this run up a good chunk, to be honest. You could probably have it around 2 minutes. Right now, it's closer to 3 minutes, which isn't the fastest time. But to be honest, for a solo champion on Sand Devil, I'm not upset with it whatsoever. You could also throw in other champions. You could throw in a Newt to get some, 30% or so HP knocked off at the beginning, to speed up a little bit. You could throw in another champion or two if you wanted to, make it a little bit faster. But ultimately, he's the only one you really need. And this becomes a smooth, consistent, safe solo run using Galleus Bloodcrest, who before this It wasn't talked about a ton. At least not for this relatively fast run. This is just like on the edge of what I consider fine to do. I typically don't make videos on anybody soloing above 3 minutes, and this dude just squeezes right in there at the end at just 3 minutes. Maybe. Let's see. 2 minutes and 57 seconds. Yeah. I can't do anything above 3 minutes, right? So can't do that. I'm not going to speak of it, but 257, that's okay. All right, guys, there we go. That is the GALLEUS solo stage 25 of Sand Devil. Give it a shot. Like I said, the boss's speed is 270. So if you're below that, you're going to want Stone Skin or something to survive. But if you're above that, well, then you're probably going to be okay. Just make sure you will have to open with the Revival and Death, which will make it a little bit weird because where I'm opening with this right now, if you're going 270 plus, you're going to be opening with this because the unkillable's ignored anyways. So then when you open with this skill, well, then you're going to be going A3 into A2 because of the extra turn. And there's no way you can skip that necessarily. So the A2 and the A3 is great. You saw during the fight, his HP never really got that low. We also don't have great ways to heal him. So if you had some way to get him better HP throughout the fight, that would be awesome. If you wanted to, for some reason, throw in Miracle Heal, the blessing that heals whenever he loses a shield, and then throw in a Blood Shield ring or Blood Shield accessory, that could be good as well. Either way, guys, let me know what y'all think about that. Let me know how you've been enjoying the new chicken. This is obviously old ratings. I need to refresh these because these are all very, very incorrect. Because for Sand Devil, he's a solid 5. Either way, guys, thank you for watching. Best of luck building your champion, and I'll catch you on the next one.